that nobody has ever paused to ask the probing interrogative. How did the trees feel on Palm Sunday?
Of all the dumb things that can be said in the pulpit, this is up there. I think there is a coordinated effort on the part of many pastors in America to say some of the most outrageous, silly, just dumb, stupid things that they can think of in the pulpit. Well, we're going to have such an example here. This is Jamal Bryant, who is telling or is speaking on Palm Sunday. You can think of a lot of things that you can speak about on Palm Sunday, such as why Jesus shows up, why he's riding the colt, why they are saying Hosanna, what's going to happen in another week's time. All sorts of things that you can say that are biblically based, that are focused on what he is going to do. But leave it up to Jamal Bryant to do two things. One, to make it not about Jesus, but make it about him and others. Also, to take a text, to twist it, and to come up with something that it does not say. Remember, he's the one that said
85% of Jesus's life, he was out of order.
And if he can say that, well, then he can also say this.
Be like a tree. You're going to have to stay grounded. Don't you get puffed up on your ego and your ambition and your accomplishments. Stay connected with your roots. You didn't just arrive here by yourself. Turn over a new leaf. I know life becomes rough and daunting and it becomes harrowing at times, but you got to bend and not break. You have to know that I am great because I am unique. And in spite of everything that I've been through, don't judge me too quick. Why? Because I'm still growing. Is that anybody's testimony? I know I haven't checked off all of the boxes, but be patient with me. I'm still growing.
Kind of interesting that you'd come up with that in this context, but that's him because he's about himself. He wants you to also be about yourself. He wants you to look out for numero uno.
Peter Wallenwyn wrote a book called The Hidden Life of Trees. The Hidden Life of Trees, and he asserts that every life form in the earth has the ability to feel pain.
Well, that's odd. Such an odd thing to come up with on Palm Sunday, but let's see where he's going to go. I'm pretty sure we all know it's going to be interesting. It's not going to be biblical, but it's going to be interesting.
Like animals, like humans, plants produce substances that suppress pain. If they had no sensation, then it would be unnecessary.
Makes you wonder if plants have the ability to create a substance that produces or causes them to sense pain. How do we know? Who actually stopped and asked the plant? For example, the plant back here. Who asked that plant? Does that plant want to be there? Well, it's a fake plant, but since we're not living in reality anyway, might as well ask the fake plant about its ability to feel fake pain.
The thought of torture and pain being inflicted on plants only came to mind because I was reading Mark 11. And Jesus told the disciples to go find a colt. He tells them this in verse number 8. He says, go find a colt and bring the colt to me.
So he's reading Mark 11, and out of that, his mind goes to wondering, and he comes up with this thought, this idea of plants actually sensing pain.
He never told them to cut down branches. He said, just bring a colt. Let me ride on top of it. And the people decided on their own. It was never a direction from God to cut down branches. Isn't it amazing that in all your life growing up in church, for 2,000 years in the study of theology and biblical study, that nobody has ever paused to ask the probing interrogative, how did the trees feel on Palm Sunday?
This is really stupid. This is absolutely stupid. And what kind of a person, there's a whole statement that they said there's no such thing as a stupid question or a dumb question. Well, there's certainly a such thing as a dumb statement, as a stupid statement. And there's a reason why no one has ever stopped to ask that dumb question. Why? Because, first of all, Jesus didn't have to tell them to do so. There's a reason why. He's a doctor. He's got a PhD, I believe, or I don't know, maybe he's an honorary, or maybe he's got it from a diploma mill. I don't know where he got his PhD, but it certainly wasn't well thought out, and it certainly wasn't in actual scriptures and actually cutting through the scriptures and doing a dissertation on the Bible. I don't think so. If he did, that particular seminary needs to go and get it back, because All you got to do is look at the Bible. This was a custom. As a matter of fact, we see this in the Bible. Where can we go to find this out? Well, we can go to Revelation and see this. We can go to 2 Kings and see this. Let's go to Revelation 7:9. After these things I look, and behold, a great multitude which no one could count, from every nation, all the tribes, people, and tongues, standing before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, and palm branches were in their hands. Maybe we should ask Jesus why this happened. But then we go to 2 Kings. This is kind of a tradition, guys. In 2 Kings 9:13, then they hurried, and each man took his garment and placed it under him on bare steps, and blew the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. Now, why is this important? Because part of tradition was to take your clothes or your cloak or your coat and to place it on the ground as the king is coming, so that the king is not walking on the ground. And if you didn't have that to give, what could you give? You could put plants. You can put the leaves, or in this case, palm branches. They grew all the time. They were all over. They're plentiful. And so you would lay those down. This isn't something that's that difficult, that bears a lot of thought. Jesus never told them to put branches down. That was already a thing to do. This was a way of symbolizing or saying the king is here. It's a way of showing honor to the king. Again, who's coming? The Son of David, Jesus. That's what the prophecies told. That's what they're cheering for, even though they're going to turn around and betray him a week later and cry out, and many of them cry out for his crucifixion. But this is the point. There's no reason to sit and figure out why the trees, there's no reason to sit and contemplate how do the trees feel. That makes absolutely no sense.
Nobody ever gave it any never mind. And part of the reason why nobody ever gave critical analysis on how the trees felt on Palm Sunday is because people presume that trees don't have feelings.
I just don't know what to say.
Some of the branches from those palm trees, you're not going to believe it, New Birth, some of the branches from those palm trees were hacked off with machetes. And here it is. They were hacked off, and the people who did it had the mind they were doing it for God.
Weren't they? It makes you wonder what the people that are sitting in that audience thinking at that moment. I think he's going somewhere. Now, I don't read my Bible, and I don't really know the scriptures like I should, which is why I go to this church. And so this doesn't make any sense right now, but I'm pretty sure he's going to say something. And even if it doesn't make any sense, I'm going to cheer for him. Why? Because it's Jamal Bryant. He's my pastor. I go to this church. We don't really stand on biblical principles. We stand on whatever else that makes us feel good. And so he's going to say something. I'm going to act like it made sense to me, and I'm going to cheer.
When God never asked him to do it. There have been people who have been wielding weapons to cut you at your knees, to make you small enough to be their size. So they use language and insults to think that they can chop you in half, and they think they're doing it because they're spiritual.
So he's taking this about trees having pain and then kind of weaving it into something selfish about how people are saying negative things or bad things about us, hurting us.
They use machetes to cut down the branches. And I came to bear witness to somebody in this room. No weapon that is formed against you will be able to prosper. I can tell y'all ain't shouting because you ain't had folk who conspired to wound you and to break you. But no matter what they tried, God put a hedge fence of protection around you.
This is where the people who don't think, who don't read their Bible, get up and they just shout because they think they've heard something. First of all, he uses that passage out of context. And a lot of folks do, using Isaiah 54:17 out of context. That's neither here nor there for this point. But again, we've got to make this relate to the people, make them shout, because we want them to stay with us.
I am here to announce to you under the authority of heaven that not a hand will be laid on you. I better go a step further. Not a hand will be laid on your children. Why? Because touch not my anointed and do my servant no harm.
Now, remember, this is a Palm Sunday service, and so we're not even speaking about why Jesus is showing up there, what's getting ready to happen, because that's not important at that church. But let's think about this, though. If he wants to talk about people saying things about you and doing things to you, what did Jesus say in this regard? He said, Jesus, the one who we should be talking about on Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday and any other Sunday. He says, "Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me, for my sake." Now, if someone is saying something against you and it has nothing to do with God, well then, hey, maybe you have it coming. But if they persecute you and insult you for his sake, that's a good thing. He said, "Blessed are you, happy are you because of that." Well, no, not at this church. No one should ever say anything or do anything negative towards me. As long as I feel bad about it, then that means it is a bad thing. It's sad that many pastors are not preaching Jesus, preaching him crucified, the reason why he was crucified, our need for him to be crucified, and what that does for us. And then our walk in that life, our subsequent walk in that life, the Spirit in us, causing us to move in his teachings, giving us joy. It's sad that preachers don't preach that. It's sad that even on, you would think of all the occasions, there's some occasions that would cause for me to stop thinking about me and to think about Jesus. You know, maybe Christmas, maybe Easter, maybe Palm Sunday, maybe Pentecost Sunday. There's a lot. Obviously, there are days where you should be preaching about Jesus, and this one day at least sticks out that as one of the 3 or 4 or 5 days of the year that we ought to be at least speaking about Jesus. Every Sunday in church should be centered around him. The Bible is centered around him, but not at this church. And because the Bible is not centered around Jesus at that church, it allows him to get up and say something as ignorant and as ungodly and as man-centered as possible. Matter of fact, plant-centered.